It was February 2019 in Denver, Colorado, the kind of night where the cold seeps into your bones. My furnace had given out that afternoon, and my two kids, Liam, 9, and Sophie, 6, were huddled under blankets in our tiny apartment, teeth chattering. I didn't have time to wait for a repair. I grabbed their coats, buckled them into the car, and drove straight to my parents' house. They had plenty of space, 4 bedrooms, 2 guest rooms, and a finished basement. I figured it would be an easy, of course, stay here situation. Instead, the second I stepped inside, my mother's smile vanished. "You can't stay here," she said flatly. "We need the room for Mason." Mason, their golden grandson. My brother Ryan's pampered 11-year-old. The same boy who once ripped Sophie's sketchbook in half and called her boring. "But it's freezing outside," I pleaded, keeping my voice steady while Sophie clutched my hand. My father didn't even flinch. "Mason needs comfort," he said. "Your kids'll be fine in the car for a night." The words hit harder than the wind outside. My parents had always made it clear I wasn't their priority, but this was different. I wanted to tell them that the struggling, paycheck-to-paycheck single mom they thought I was no longer existed, that for the past 5 years I'd been building something they couldn't imagine. Instead, I swallowed my anger, turned on my heel, and walked my kids back to the car. I didn't tell them my plan. I didn't tell them that in less than 48 hours, those same parents would be the ones begging me for help. The next morning, I woke to the sound of Sophie coughing in the back seat. We'd parked outside a 24-hour diner for warmth, and I used my last $20 cash to buy them pancakes and hot chocolate. As they ate, my chest tightened. My parents had 2 empty guest rooms, but they'd rather let their golden boy stretch out than give my kids a safe bed. My phone buzzed, a text from Ryan. "Don't make a scene about last night. Mason needs stability." Stability? Mason had 3 gaming consoles, private tennis lessons, and a bedroom full of unopened toys. Meanwhile, Liam and Sophie were sharing a blanket in a freezing car. What Ryan and my parents didn't know was that I'd been quietly working 2 jobs for years, saving every spare dollar. I'd taken online courses after midnight, learned everything I could about small business investments, and put my money into something solid. A local financial advisory firm that was now expanding faster than anyone expected. And here was the part nobody knew. Last month, I'd quietly acquired a controlling stake in a mid-sized bank. By noon, my phone rang. It was my mom, her voice tight. "Claire, you need to come to the house. It's an emergency." When I pulled into their driveway, my dad was pacing the porch, Ryan on the phone looking pale, and Mason peeking through the curtains like it was prime entertainment. Mom rushed toward me. "It's your father's retirement account. Something's wrong." Dad's voice cracked. "The bank froze our accounts. We can't access anything. And they said, we need to talk to the new majority shareholder." I let the silence stretch, watching them squirm in the cold. "Oh, and who might that be?" Ryan's phone went still in his hand. My father's eyes darted to my face. "It's you?" he said, barely above a whisper. I nodded. "Yes, I'm the new majority shareholder, and unlike you, I don't throw people I care about out into the cold." The color drained from his face. Mom began to stammer about family and forgiveness, but I wasn't in the mood. "I'll unfreeze your accounts," I said finally, "but only after you apologize to Liam and Sophie in front of the whole family." 2 days later, the opportunity landed in my lap. My cousin Lily was hosting her annual family dinner. One of those events where every relative dressed to impress, compared vacation photos, and bragged about the year's successes. Normally, I found an excuse to skip it. This year, I RSVP'd yes, without hesitation. When we arrived, the chatter in the grand dining room faltered. My parents were seated at the long, polished table beside Ryan, beaming for the crowd as if nothing had happened. Mason, their golden grandson, sat front and center, showing off a brand new smartwatch, the kind that cost more than my rent back in the days when they thought I was barely scraping by. "Claire, you made it!" Lily greeted me with a hug, her voice warm, but her eyes flicking nervously toward the head of the table. I could feel the sideways glances, the whispers passing between aunts and uncles. One aunt leaned toward another guest and stage whispered, "Surprise she showed her face after what happened." I smiled politely and took my seat, Liam and Sophie on either side of me. But my attention wasn't on the roast lamb or the crystal glasses of wine. It was on the small, velvet folder tucked in my purse, the one containing the signed and sealed shareholder documents that could flip this family's power dynamic in an instant. Halfway through dinner, Ryan stood, glass raised. "I just want to say how grateful I am for my parents' support this year," he began. "Thanks to them, my business is thriving. And Mason here," he patted his son's shoulder, "is top of his class." Polite laughter rippled around the table, accompanied by the soft clink of cutlery. I noticed Dad's smile didn't quite reach his eyes. The stress of the frozen accounts was clearly wearing him down. Then Lily, blissfully unaware of the tension, turned to me. "So, Claire, what have you been up to? Still working at that little place?" A few cousins chuckled under their breath. I leaned forward, my voice calm but with an edge sharp enough to cut glass. "Actually, yes, that little place is part of a company I now own 60% of." I reached into my purse and slid the velvet folder onto the table. Slowly I opened it, revealing the official shareholder documents, signed, dated, sealed. Ryan's smirk vanished. His glass clinked back onto the table. "This," I continued, "is the company your so-called thriving business depends on for supply chain and distribution. And as of last quarter, I have full controlling interest, which means," I let my gaze move between my brother and my parents, "I decide whether you get to keep operating at all." The room fell silent except for the ticking of the antique wall clock. Mason stopped fiddling with his smartwatch. My mother's hand froze halfway to her wine glass. "Claire," Ryan started, his voice tight. I cut him off. "You froze my kids out in the rain for your comfort. Now I control whether your business survives. I think that's what they call stability. And if you think that was the end of it, you're wrong. The real twist is still coming. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what happened when they tried to fight back." That's impossible. I thought you were the only one with shares." Ryan's voice cracked, his confident facade crumbling in front of the entire family. I didn't even blink. "You convinced Dad to invest his retirement into your company," I said evenly. "The same company that was quietly opening up to more investors. The same one I've been buying into for years." The room went dead silent. My mother's hand trembled as she set her fork down. "Claire, what are you saying?" I smiled, savoring the moment. "I'm saying that your golden boy here works for me now." Gasps circled the long dining table. A few relatives leaned forward, like they'd just paid for front row seats to a Broadway drama. But I wasn't done. That was just the first crack in the perfect little image they'd built around Ryan. I had one more card to play. One that would not only change the family hierarchy forever, but make them regret every single freezing night they'd forced Liam and Sophie to sleep in the car. Ryan's jaw tightened. "You think this is some kind of game, Claire? You can't just—" "Oh, but I can." I leaned back in my chair, letting my voice cut through the whispers. "And I already have." From my purse, I pulled out a slim white envelope. Inside was the notice my attorney had prepared just yesterday, an official termination of Ryan's position as CEO, effective immediately. "This isn't legal," he snapped, standing so fast his chair scraped the floor. But the panic in his eyes told me he knew the truth. He'd never read the fine print when he sold off those extra shares to anonymous investors years ago. He'd just assumed no one could outplay him. Dad slammed his palm on the table, making the silverware jump. "Claire, stop this right now. You're tearing this family apart." I met his glare without flinching. "No, Dad. I'm making sure my kids never have to beg for a place to sleep again. You made your choice when you put Mason's comfort above their safety." The relatives were eating up every word. Whispers snaked down the table like wildfire. "She owns the company? He's been working for her this whole time?" Even Mason's smug little grin was gone, replaced by a confused frown. I turned to Ryan for the final blow. Effective tomorrow, I'm moving the company headquarters out of state. You can either work under my terms or you can clear out your desk. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. My mom's eyes darted between us, desperate to salvage the scene. Claire, maybe we can talk privately. No. I stood, gathering my bag and motioning for Liam and Sophie. We'll leave it here. I think everyone's heard enough. As we walked toward the door, I could feel every pair of eyes following me, not with pity, not with dismissal, but with something new. Fear, maybe even respect. Outside, the winter air was sharp, but my chest felt light. Liam slipped his small hand into mine, Sophie clutched my arm, and for the first time in years, I knew exactly where we stood in this family story. We weren't the ones left out in the cold anymore. And I wasn't done. Because the final part of my plan? That was still to come, and it would ensure they never dared to look down on me or my children. Again. The next morning, I set the last piece of my plan into motion. It wasn't enough for Ryan to lose his CEO title. It wasn't enough for my parents to squirm at a family dinner or spend a sleepless night worrying about frozen accounts. No, I wanted this burned so deep into their memory that every time they saw me or my kids, they'd remember the day the balance of power shifted forever. I booked the largest conference hall in Denver. I made sure every shareholder, employee, and investor received an invitation. And yes, I even had seats reserved for my parents, Ryan and Mason. When the day came, the hall was buzzing with hundreds of people. Mason sat in the front row next to Ryan, still fiddling with that smartwatch like it might protect him from what was coming. My parents flanked my brother like human shields. But there would be no shielding from this. When I stepped on stage, the chatter died instantly. "Good morning," I began, my voice steady but charged with a confidence they had never seen from me before. "Most of you know me as Claire Thompson, one of the company's smaller shareholders. What you don't know is that I am now the majority owner, and as of today, we're restructuring." Behind me, the massive screen flickered to life, displaying a clean growth chart. Profits had doubled in the past 2 years. Murmurs rippled through the room. Then, the next slide appeared. Ryan Thompson, CEO, struck through in bold red. Underneath, new CEO, Claire Thompson. Applause erupted, but I raised a hand. Before we move forward, I think it's important to understand how we got here. I turned toward the crowd. Years ago, Ryan approached our father for a large investment. That money came directly from my parents' retirement account. He promised to grow it. Instead, he sold controlling shares without fully understanding the terms. He assumed no one would be determined enough to claim them. He was wrong. Ryan shot to his feet. "You're humiliating me in front of the entire company." I didn't blink. "No, Ryan, you humiliated yourself when you thought you could take what wasn't yours. You humiliated yourself when you decided my kids weren't worth the warmth of a spare bedroom on a freezing night, and you humiliated this family when you put your greed above everything else." The hall was silent except for the clicking of cameras, because yes, I'd invited the local press. By tomorrow morning, this story would be everywhere. I moved to the final slide, a photo of Liam and Sophie grinning in our new home, a 5-bedroom house I'd bought in cash last month. "From now on," I said, my voice catching just enough to be human, "this company will invest in people who work hard, not people who believe they're entitled to everything. And my children will grow up knowing that no one decides their worth but themselves." The applause that followed was deafening. Shareholders stood. Employees clapped until their hands turned red. My parents sat pale and stiff. Ryan looked like he'd swallowed glass. Mason stared at the floor, the smugness gone. I stepped down from the stage, and Liam and Sophie ran to me. I scooped them up, feeling lighter than I had in years. This wasn't just revenge, this was justice. As we walked out of that hall, I knew one thing. They would never forget the day the worthless daughter became the one holding all the power. That day, when I stood in a room packed with people, it wasn't just about taking back a company. It was about reclaiming my voice and securing safety for my children. If this story resonates with you, I want to hear your thoughts. Do you support the decision I made? Do you think I went too far? Or was this the only way to make them understand? Leave your comments, because your words could be the encouragement someone else needs while quietly enduring their own injustice. I've learned one thing. Your silence doesn't mean you're weak. It can be the time you're preparing, gathering, and building real strength. Never let others decide your worth, and never let a temporary circumstance convince you that you can't change your future. If you're in a place where every door seems closed, remember this. Every hour you spend learning a new skill, every dollar you save, every moment you choose patience over outburst, they're all bricks in the foundation for the day you stand tall. And when that day comes, you won't just stand for yourself. You'll stand for the people you love. If you believe in justice, if you believe in protecting those who are vulnerable, then stand with me. Together, we can prove that no one has the right to leave another person out in the cold, whether literally or figuratively.